My homily today involves hand-eye coordination. I gave this homily when I left my last parish, and I learned the hard way the chasuble just gets in the way. So being my last weekend here, my message today, I'd like to offer you the Father Justin version of, let's call it, the theology of goodbyes. For those of you that attended, I want to say it was the school mass for All Souls Day. But I showed a couple of videos from one of my favoriteest TV shows of all times, Joan of Arcadia. I'm not going to show it in the video today. But Joan of Arcadia, it's this teenager Joan, and she's literally visited by God in the form of different people. Like every single time God is different. And God basically helps her grow and mature through her tumultuous teenage years. And I've gone on record saying that all teenagers are punks, so she obviously needed the help, even though she's visited by God. Anyway, love the show, love it, and it made it 2 seasons. And the second season is considerably darker, considerably more complicated, considerably deeper in its theology. So, well into the second season, Joan has this friend, her own age, but she's more rough around the edges. Joan is actually she's a pretty good girl. She's got her problems, but she never gets mixed up in anything truly dangerous. Well, she has this friend who was more rough around the edges, got into some trouble, and she got mixed up with drugs and the wrong kind of people that go along with drugs. And in the space of the TV episode, she dies. She does die, I assume, of a drug overdose. So Joan winds up at the crime scene or whatever, and she's of course distraught. And God pays her a visit in the form of just a relatively plain young, older man. Sometimes God is a very striking form. This time he's a relatively normal-looking, middle-aged guy holding 3 juggling balls. And Joan she's crying. She's distraught. And when she figures out that it's God, she starts begging him for answers, because that's what Joan does. And she just says, God, why did this have to happen? And God doesn't answer the question. Instead, God says, Joan, a traveler is walking down the road. He weighs 195 pounds. And he comes upon a bridge, and the bridge has a stress level of 200 pounds. 200 pounds or more, and the bridge will collapse. Joan's barely listening, and she's saying, she was just so young, and she was so good, and why did this have to happen? But God still isn't answering the question. God continues with his little story and says, so this 195-pound traveler comes upon a 200-pound bridge, but he has 3 golden apples, and each golden apple weighs 2 pounds. So how does he get across the bridge? And Joan is still not taking the bait. She just says, I just don't understand why there's so much pain and so much grief and so much wrongness in the world. And God says, Joan, how does the traveler get across the bridge? And then Joan snaps. She snags the juggling balls from God. Not a good idea, in my opinion. She snags the balls from God and says, I get it, God, I get it. He juggles. Everyone knows that stupid riddle. What does that have to do with anything? And God, perfectly calm, because he's God, he takes the juggling balls back from Joan. And with perfect calmness, he says, Joan, you are the traveler. And the bridge is your life. And the 3 golden apples are everything you've ever learned, everything you've ever experienced, and everyone you've ever met. And if you hold them all to your chest, if you absolutely refuse to let any of it go, the bridge is going to collapse. It is too heavy. It is too much weight to bear. How do you get past the bridge? You juggle. Like I said, the Chasuble makes this part really difficult. So you juggle. You let go of a few things, knowing that when the time is right, they'll come back to you. Thank you. My last church didn't applaud me, and I didn't deserve it. I absolutely love that story, and I love the imagery of all of that. I love the idea of juggling as a form of letting go with faith that there is continuation and that things do in fact return to you. Because a lot of people who have trouble with religion, people that have issues with God, a big whopper of the problem is letting go. All right? Thy will be done is a very difficult phrase for a lot of people. And part of the problem is that for a lot of people, when you talk about letting go, they think of dropping the ball on the ground. It's down there, it's gone, it's never coming back. People don't like letting go of things because people don't want to throw away good things. You know, that's natural. And when you think about it, God asks us to let go of a great deal in life. It's one of his catchphrases. But if you think about it, God doesn't ask us to let go of inherently bad things. All right? We never read in the Bible that you're supposed to let go of beating up your sister. Okay? You're not supposed to let go of your bad habit of shoplifting. These are things we don't say. We use other words for those things. If you have a bad habit like shoplifting, we talk about conquering that part of yourself, not letting it go. No. When we are asked to let go of something, it's generally something good, at least partially. We are asked to let go of our need to be in control, to let go of being the person who gets to fix it all, letting go of being the center of attention, letting go of people that you do in fact really like being around. That's letting go. We can talk about that, understanding that we are not throwing each other away, never to be seen again. We talk about letting go in that metaphor of juggling, where we let go for a little while, knowing that things return to us when the time is right. That is the theology of goodbye, saying farewell for a time, knowing through faith that nothing good in this life is ever truly lost, and therefore anything we do in saying goodbye can only be temporary. Starting here on out, I'm going to start juggling you, metaphorically. Not literally. The problem with juggling babies is there's no legitimate way to practice. I will metaphorically begin juggling you today, and you'll juggle me in return, knowing that we're letting go for a little while, but whether later in this life or in the one that is to come, all will return to where it truly belongs.